Welcome to the Money Moves podcast, episode 1. I'm your host, Mitchell Torrence, also known as Manifest Mitchell, here today with Mr. Jim Huish, a viral gun video creator.
Oh man, bringing that up.
A multi-instrumentalist and multi-band musician. And the focus of today's podcast, a full-time real estate investor and property manager. Jim, thanks for being here today. It's an honor to have you on the show, man.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Can't wait to dive in today, man. Share some valuable information with us about how you have created a full-time income from your side hustle, moving from starting a small side hustle to creating that full-time income for yourself. How did you first get started? And specifically with real estate, how did you first get funding or leverage to get your first property?
Well, it's funny because I was sort of forced into real estate investing to begin with. Like I became a teacher and I thought I had my full-time career and this was going to be the next 30 years. And once you get out of college and get a career, you think the next move is to get a house. So I went to a couple different lenders. The first guy turned me down because I had absolutely no credit. I was just coming out of school. I'd never had a credit card, no car loans, anything. So they turned me down real quick. Then I found somebody that would lend to me with a note from my future principal for that next school year. So I had my principal write me a note that I was in fact hired for the next year. And so they said, hey, that's good enough for us. And that was 2006, which was, as many of you know, was right before the big real estate market crash.
Top of the market.
Yeah, so they were kind of giving away. I mean, like I said, I was turned down by the first guy, but they were pretty loose with their lending. So they gave me a loan, just a 3.5% down payment FHA loan to get my probably a first-time home buyer.
Home buyer,
and I got my first home.
So you were able to use leverage to really get started. That's one thing about real estate that's super helpful is, I guess, raising capital, getting the funds together can be super easy. Even on VA loans, you can get literally 0% down if you're a veteran. Now, I personally have a little bit different mentality about borrowing money and that kind of thing. Yeah. But 3.5% down for a down payment, I mean, it's amazing that you can get cash flow potential and appreciation and value started with, I mean, almost nothing.
Yes. Oh, it was fantastic. I couldn't have bought a house without it, which, that gets some people in trouble. If it's too easy to borrow too much money and you're not responsible about borrowing and leveraging your money, then yeah, you can get into big trouble. But with that 3.5% down payment, I don't want to say it was just a few $1,000s got me into a house.
Yeah.
House cost $160,000.
And what a great start to your portfolio. I know from there you're able to venture off. I think you have how many, 5 or 6?
6 now.
6 properties now. That's awesome, man.
Picked up one more. Yeah.
So how long did it take you from when you first got the idea, hey, I want to start investing in real estate, from the time that started to getting to the point where you have a full-time income now? You can quit your job, quit your teaching job or whatever from that side hustle that you started.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a rocky road to get here for sure, and it was up and down. But the first thing that kind of got me into it is I was miserable at that job. So like I said, I got my career job that I thought was going to be the rest of my life, and then I was miserable at work, and I realized, I just went to school, spent a bunch of money and time to go to college and get a degree, and now I'm unhappy in my job. And I was thinking, man, this is the next 30 years of my life. I don't know if I can do this. But I had bought right before the market crash, and I wanted to move to Nashville and chase my dreams and run away from my troubles at my school job as a teacher. And I just said, I'm going. Like, I have to. I can't stand school anymore. I can't face work for the next 30 years. So I planned on going to Nashville, and I found a house online the market had crashed at that time, and so I was upside down on my mortgage. It was the value of the home at this point, since the value came down from what I originally bought it for. I couldn't get out of the house and
without
cover
borrowing
the mortgage.
More money.
Yes. So I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I was going to Nashville, and I had saved up over the last few years. Probably about 4 or 5 years or so. I saved up around $18,000 or $16,000, and I found a house online in Tennessee, just about 35 minutes out of Nashville, for $18,600, which is the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I was like, what is this magical place where they play music and houses cost nothing? So. But still, it was my life savings. I put that together, bought the house. I borrowed a little money from my parents and sold some furniture and different things, borrowed from my brother and from my girlfriend at the time, and just made the move. And 2 days before we hit the road, I found a renter for my house that was in Utah. And it was still a bad situation because rent at the time would not cover my mortgage. So I was still paying $250 every month to cover my mortgage, but I just wanted to keep all my credit together, and I had borrowed that loan. I didn't want to walk away from it and foreclose or do a short sale or anything. So it was kind of crazy. It was very stressful, and it took me a year of working on that new house in Tennessee, that $18,000, we'll call it a shack, not a house, but it's a house now. But so the plan wasn't to become a real estate investor. It was to get to Nashville and play music and chase my dreams. And I was stuck with that house, and I didn't know what to do, but I was trying to be responsible while chasing my dreams. And so I had that person paying that, and I eventually was able to refinance that first property. And at that point, it got me to a break-even point with that house. And so then I was like, well, I mean, should I get rid of it now? And what should I do? And as months passed, and then eventually years passed, I was like, somebody else is paying off a house for me.
Yeah.
And I hired, it was really stressful at first because I was having my family do the property management in Utah.
Right. So this is in Utah, across 2,000 miles.
Yeah, I'm in Tennessee, and I'd have to call my mom when somebody wasn't paying rent, and she would go over to the house and knock on the door and try to get money from them, and they were not treating her right, and so I was done with that. So I found property managers, and that was probably the best decision I made, to have someone else take care of it, do all the nasty work that I didn't want to do and I didn't want my family to do.
It's another way of leveraging itself. Leverage somebody else's time.
Yes. Yes, and that was just as important as the money side of it. And that kind of at that moment, and then also I wanted to move into Nashville, get closer to the downtown music scene. So I ended up moving to Nashville and renting out that shack that I bought.
Perfect.
And at that point, I was just like, I have to keep doing this.
Let's keep the ball rolling.
I left my music job, and I didn't have a retirement anymore. So if I was leaving that, how was I going to retire ever? How was I going to be financially healthy when I got old? So I saw that the light bulb started turning on.
Right. Yeah. Cool. It's interesting when you're talking about having either negative cash flow or just breaking even on, so for example, when you're with $250 in the hole every month on real estate, even that being said, if you really think about it, you're still slowly piecing together equity, and you're waiting on the appreciation in value. You're paying off your mortgage, and you're still getting some sort of appreciation. So it's one of these things. Obviously, when you go into a rental property, you want to have at least some sort of positive cash flow. But even if you're breaking even, you're still getting that appreciation of value and paying your mortgage off at the same time. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, savvy investors say don't ever play the game for appreciation. Do it for cash flow. Make sure everything's super healthy, and if the property appreciates, then that's just a bonus.
Sure.
And yay, awesome. That's just extra icing on the cake. But don't play appreciation, because there's some markets, it depends on where you live, but some markets don't have that appreciation.
Yeah, some markets still haven't recovered. I mean, looking at Detroit or Chicago, on the outskirts and the kind of suburban areas, I mean, there's still just thousands of properties that are long since foreclosed. No one wants to buy them and that kind of thing. So definitely keep the cash. You want to definitely have your cash flow as your first priority, and then the appreciation as a bonus.
No, for sure. Yeah, that the first house that I got, I mean, it was depreciating at first. Like we were saying, the market was crashing. The value of that house was going down for a while. Eventually, it started coming up and making it a much better investment. It wasn't a good investment when I first bought it, but it has become a wonderful investment over time. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm sure the explosion of value kind of between 2010 to 2012, 13, even till now, has certainly helped. I'm sure rents have gone up. You've got some insane appreciation.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess to answer the question in full, how many properties did it take you to say, all right, I'm done with? Was it just those two that you said you're able to pay your bills, cover all your expenses, and say, hey, this is my full-time side hustle now, where I'm not working for anybody else or having that consistent income?
Definitely not just from the two.
Right.
That second one and that move to Nashville, kind of in that time, finishing up that property and getting it ready to get rented, when I really started dreaming about the potential of what I could do. I actually wanted to keep teaching for a few more years, because what I could have done if I had that teacher salary, each year I could have made really big moves and really stacked up my portfolio. But I also was in Nashville for music, not for real estate investing. So I absolutely wanted to spend as much of my time as I could playing music and building my career as a musician. So yeah, the next, let's see, I moved into Nashville. I bought a house right in town, not right in the city or anything, but in the suburbs of Nashville. It's a Nashville address, and I rented rooms to roommates to cover my mortgage.
House hacking.
So yeah, house hacking. Yeah, if you've heard it called that. Yes. Yep. So I was house hacking that place and playing music. And right at that time, I was actually still teaching up until just a few months after I bought that house. So I bought that house, filled it with roommates, mortgage is covered. I'm playing music. My roommates in the house were all musicians. So we were running around city playing music. It was awesome. So I was getting really excited at that time, and realizing that, okay, my living expenses are starting to really get covered. Like I wasn't there yet. I had to rely on my teaching job.
You saw progress,
something.
though.
I saw the progress of what I was able to do after being in that house. The following school year, I was able to quit right at the start of the year and not have to face that next school year, because typically you get hired and you want to stay for the whole 9 months of teaching, and not bail on it. But I was starting a band right at that time, a little trio. And we started playing some shows, and it was just enough to get me by with my rental incomes. But I also just got really excited. I mean, there's another story of all the financing side of the real estate during this time, but I was able to acquire a couple more properties within that first few months of playing in that band that really kind of put me to the point where, okay, so like I can play a little bit of music or a lot of music, and I'm still going to be fine.
Perfect.
Because the real estate will cover me when the music doesn't.
What a great feeling to have, too. You're now seeing your side hustle, the benefits of the fruits of your side hustle, taking the risk, especially early on, like you said, even with just the one, but eventually getting to the point, this is my full-time income now. I can be flexible with my lifestyle, with my other things that I enjoy doing, which brings me to my next question. What opportunities has automating your income or having that kind of automatic income on the side, what opportunities has that opened up for you, especially with kind of chasing your hobbies or your things that you're passionate about?
Man, I can't even describe to you unless you experience it yourself. How
I got to experience it a little bit with you guys when Jim and I know each other. We used to play some music together way back in the day.
Yeah.
So I got to see some of those benefits.
So the most liberating thing, I mean, especially after being in work that you are stressed out in and being stuck, like feeling like you're stuck and you have no other options, and you have to get up every single morning and work hard all day and miserable all day, and then you got to face it again and again and again and again. And I know this is a pretty typical story for a lot of people that their heart really isn't in the job that they're in, and so you get stuck, and it's really, really tough. It's really stressful, and not having to face that was the most liberating thing ever, especially when I had something that I wanted to be chasing for years, for my whole life, and I wasn't able to, because you're stuck doing all these things where life tells you can't chase what you want to do. You can't do what you love. You've got to have a full-time job, because music isn't a real thing. You can't make money in music, and really you can. I also learned at the same time that you can make money in music, and you can do really well, and you can build a career there. But you can't. I mean, it's really hard to do that if you don't have the time and the energy to put into it and build yourself a business in music. So yeah, getting out of that and just having this income coming in from, to answer your question a little more clearly, is just having all these rental payments coming in each month. If we were busy writing songs or recording, or we didn't have the high-paying gigs for a little while, my rental income kept me alive, and I didn't have to go get a job. So I was always open. It was really nice because this band, we didn't have full-time jobs. The other two guys in the trio didn't either. So we were free. Anytime that a gig comes up, we wouldn't have to turn it down. We could always take everything that worked and helped our business grow. So that was
on the side,
deal.
Kind of turning down gigs, we're talking about leverage. The term leverage begets leverage. So what's cool is that now that you've leveraged yourself into these properties, now you have this leverage of cash flow. With your music gigs and whatnot, you can now say, you know what, I am making enough with this. I don't need this $100 gig. I don't need this $300 gig. I can look for the gigs that are really going to bring up my market value as a musician, that are going to kind of put me in a better position for people to give me more money or to create more value for other people, because I now have the leverage to say no.
I can't tell you how big of a deal that is, because this more just for the last year for me. So I was in Nashville for 7 years, moved back to Utah for a year, and picked up that sixth property that I was mentioning. And then coming back this time, I have been able to say no to those gigs that don't do it for you, that are miserable, that make you unhappy, that I'm not desperate anymore, and it's such a big deal, such a good feeling.
Oh my gosh!
To be able to turn that down, because it leaves not just the time. It leaves the emotional energy that it takes to create music. Like it kills you. It kills you a little inside every time you play a crappy gig where nobody's paying attention or nobody's there at all, or you're not making the money that you need to make. And you're traveling to a place and you're paying money to get there, and they don't even give you free food or whatever, and it just. No, it is such a big deal to not have to take the desperation gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From my experience in the industry, when I was kind of full time didn't have a portfolio of investment properties like you did. I always had better results, and I had more power when I was able to say no, because I could insist and claim my value to other people. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to show up somewhere with a sound system and this and that and bringing everything for less than X amount of dollars. Yeah. And having that flexibility, it's almost like a vicious cycle. Having that flexibility to say no raises your market value.
Yeah.
Gives you better opportunities to make more money. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
Totally. And there are people that will kind of look down on you for saying no to some things, and it's, for some reason, there's this just the thing around it that, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should just take everything that you can. And there's something special about once you do that, like you realize how powerful it is when you can say no.
Absolutely. And the people that take everything they can, they don't have the flexibility to say no, because they're at the mercy of the market of the demand, right?
And they get stuck there.
And they get stuck.
Yeah, down in that bottom end.
Great tip for musicians to build, even if you want to make music your full-time side hustle, have something else that is somewhat providing you some sort of cash flow to where you have flexibility to say, I don't need this. I'd like to spend my time doing something else. Yeah. You're not forced to take the market value that other people are putting on you.
Yeah, for sure.
Great tidbits, great information in there. We're coming to a close on this afternoon's podcast with a lightning round. I haven't told you, Jim, about these questions, but the idea, answer these questions. First thing comes to mind as fast as you can. Some of these are about money. Some of these are completely random. One personal question I'm very interested to hear about. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Maybe.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, chocolate came to my mind first, even though that's not really necessarily my thing. It's a solid, just always
it's
chocolate
a good
can work.
Chocolate can work. Okay, cool. Most amount of cash that you've ever seen or touched, had your hands on at one time?
It was for that first house that I bought. This isn't a quick answer, but not the first house I bought. The house that I got in Tennessee, my cash house. So I had to pull, I think it was like 11 or 12 grand out of one bank to move to another bank to get that transaction figured out. And so I had to sign the forms, because I didn't realize if you ever pull $10,000 or more out of a bank, you have to sign a form for the federal government.
100%.
So I went out of there, stuffed my pockets full of like 11 grand, and I'm walking out of there making sure nobody's watching, man. It was kind of weird. And it wouldn't have been so weird, except that I had to fill out that form. I was like, man, who's watching me now, boy? Woo.
But next time you can do $9,999.
There you go.
And you don't have to. You don't get flagged or anything. Nothing like that. All right. Amount of guns that you own.
Well,
speaking of protecting your money and protecting yourself.
So I only had 2 guns before. No, 3. I had 2 handguns and a shotgun that my mom bought me for Christmas years ago. But because of the gun music videos, I now co-own a small arsenal, we'll call it. I don't know exactly how many it is, but we ended up getting sponsorships from different gun companies that contacted us after that first viral video to put in the next one, and we put them in the next one, and that one did well too. It's since been pulled because YouTube is weird. We'll just call them weird.
Algorithm.
But no, I pulled because they say that we promoted the sale of guns, which we didn't. We're playing music. I put guns on my drum set out in the desert and shot guns and played drums and stuff. But anyway, had a bunch of sponsorships and stuff. So we've gotten quite a few guns given to us, or even like parts that were given to us to build more guns and stuff. So it's funny because I haven't done hardly any gun stuff since then, and I really hadn't done much gun stuff before that. But now I'm the big gun guy because I had a viral video.
If you haven't seen the video, or multiple videos on YouTube, his name is Jim Huish, Huish. The big song was the Cup song from the movie Pitch Perfect.
Yes, sir.
I checked it this morning. I think it was 7.8 million views.
Yeah.
And then he's got a couple Christmas themed ones, Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an American, and you really should be watching Jim Huish's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Okay,
hey, thanks.
2 more questions.
Thanks for the plug.
Worst mistake you've ever made with your money?
Well, it's tough because I'll say this. This probably isn't the worst mistake because my first thought for that question is a lot of people would think that first house was a mistake because I was so naive and I jumped into this thing, $160,000 thing that was going to lock me in for 30 years of having to pay $1,200 every month of my life.
Right, and before I almost the crash,
right before the crash. Worst possible. I had no idea what a crash was. I had no idea what real estate markets were. I didn't know anything. And it locked, like I said, I was so stuck because now I'm facing 30 years of $1,200 mortgage payments, and I had no flexibility because I couldn't switch careers because my degree was in teaching, and if I just got some random other job, I wouldn't be able to afford the payments. So it was really like, I mean, that was part of that situation where I was drowning as a teacher, like I was miserable at my job, but I had to keep the job because I was stuck with this payment that I had to pay every month. So we'll call that the worst decision. It also was maybe the best decision. The best decision was moving to Nashville because that's what forced me into real estate investing. But I learned so much through that property and holding on to it and finding property managers and stuff. So all those steps later, it became a wonderful investment for me. Yeah, that's worth a lot of money.
So very interesting. Good pro tidbit of information is, teachers, especially these days, are well known for their income. I mean, seriously, there's, I fully support, not to get political, raising teacher salary, especially public school teachers. Yeah. Let's do it, right? Yeah. But when you have such a consistent income like a teacher, I mean, you're set for 30, 40, 50 years. As long as you want to teach, you're going to have a job.
It's a fantastic career.
To use that income and that opportunity, however big or small, to fund your investments, your side. I mean, $1,200 a month, you could completely pay for that mortgage on a teaching salary. Not to mention if you had somebody or other people rent that out. So taking that opportunity as, hey, maybe this isn't the job I want to be in for the rest of my life, but I can leverage this opportunity right now to build wealth, to fund my investments, and eventually to create the side hustle that I want to have.
Well, guess what I did? I mean, I quit teaching in Utah, come to Nashville. I was like, I'm done teaching forever. Well, when I was in Nashville, I needed money. And I ended up taking a part-time teaching job at a career college to get me through. It left a lot of time open.
A little side income.
Yeah, and even full-time teaching, you got summers. Summers off to pursue other things. Always have weekends to pursue other things. And I ended up, when I got that Nashville house, which was my biggest investment, which is worth the most money out of my whole portfolio, I went back to full-time public ed teaching so that I could get qualified for another mortgage. And that's awesome. What enabled me to keep moving. So make the sacrifices. Like it's rough for a minute, but you have to.
It's a long term. I mean, you have to look at it. We talked on the phone. You can't look at it as a year, 2, 3 years down the road. How about in a decade? Your life could look completely different in a decade.
Yeah.
Right? Well, Jim, not much of a lightning round. I'm glad we got to go into depth on some of those questions. We'll speed it up next time.
That's my fault.
Great insight, great tidbits of information. I love it. Thanks for being on the Money Moves podcast, episode 1, Jim. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much.
For all of you watching or listening at home, thank you all for tuning in. We'll be starting this podcast here probably around, what is it right now? August 12th. So my plan is to put out 5 episodes as a big chunk, have a couple episodes already created on back, and then releasing one every week. So if I can get 1 done a week for now, probably we're looking at early October, maybe late September. Maybe I'll post them early on YouTube. But this is the first episode of the Money Moves podcast, helping you turn your side hustle into a full-time income. Thanks for joining us today.